What if the secret to surviving the darkest horrors imaginable wasn't hope or strength or even faith, but meaning? In 1942, a man named Viktor Frankl was torn from his life in Vienna and thrown into the hell of Nazi concentration camps. He lost his wife, his unborn child, his parents, his freedom, and yet he didn't lose his will to live. Why? Because Frankl believed something radical, that life has meaning, even in suffering, and that the most powerful human freedom is the ability to choose how we respond to it. This wasn't just a coping mechanism, it became the foundation of a new psychological revolution, logotherapy, a therapy built not around trauma but around purpose. But how did Frankl come to this idea? How did it help him survive Auschwitz when so many others didn't? And more importantly, how can it help you face your own struggles today? This is the story of the man who didn't just survive the Holocaust, he transformed it into a message that could change your life. This is the journey of Viktor Frankl, and the search for meaning that might just answer the question we all ask: why am I here? Viktor Frankl was born in 1905 in Vienna, just as the world of psychology was exploding with new ideas. As a teenager, he was already writing letters to Sigmund Freud. At just 16, he published a paper on the psychology of philosophy. Clearly, this was no ordinary kid. But even then, Frankl wasn't satisfied. Freud claimed that humans are driven by the pursuit of pleasure. Alfred Adler argued we're motivated by power. To Frankl, both ideas felt incomplete. He saw people around him suffer, sacrifice, and even give their lives for their children, their beliefs, or a cause greater than themselves. That didn't look like pleasure. That didn't look like power. So he asked a question most psychologists weren't asking. What if our deepest drive is the need for meaning? This wasn't just theory, it became his mission. Frankl went on to study medicine and psychiatry, dedicating his career to understanding the human spirit under pressure. Unlike his peers, who focused on childhood trauma or unconscious desires, Frankl looked forward. He believed the most important question we could ask is, what is my purpose now? This idea evolved into a new form of therapy, logotherapy. From the Greek logos meaning, it wasn't about solving your past, it was about finding a reason to keep going, especially when life gets hard. By his 30s, Frankl was applying this in real life, counseling, depressed teens, even stopping suicides in Vienna. People didn't need to be fixed, they needed something to live for. And just when it seemed he was on the verge of something groundbreaking, the world was about to descend into chaos. In 1942, Viktor Frankl's world shattered. The Nazis arrested him, his wife Tilly, his parents, and his brother. They were all deported to concentration camps. Frankl had the chance to escape. He had secured a visa to the United States, but instead he stayed in Vienna, choosing to care for his aging parents. That single act of loyalty cost him everything. He was sent to Auschwitz, then Dachau, and several other camps. At the gates of hell, his life's work, a manuscript detailing logotherapy, was ripped from his hands and destroyed. He was stripped of his identity and given a number 119104. The camps were built to crush the human spirit. Every day was a battle against starvation, forced labor, disease, and random execution. His father died from exhaustion. His mother was murdered in a gas chamber. His beloved Tilly, pregnant with their child, disappeared into another camp. She never came back. Frankl found himself surrounded by death, suffering, and despair. But amid this horror, he began to observe something unexpected. Some prisoners, though just as broken and starved, held on longer than others. Why? It wasn't strength, it wasn't intelligence, it was meaning. Frankl noticed that those who had something to live for, a future to imagine, a person to love, a task yet to finish, were more resilient. One man clung to the dream of finishing a scientific book, another whispered poetry to himself to stay sane. A third cared for sick inmates even when he was sick himself. Frankl's own meaning came from two sources: the memory of his wife's face, which he conjured in his darkest moments, and the relentless mental effort of rewriting his destroyed manuscript line by line in his mind. That act of creation, even within destruction, gave him purpose. His core realization was this: everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. Even in a concentration camp, Frankl believed, we are not powerless. We can choose how to suffer. We can transform pain into strength. And in that choice lies our ultimate freedom. After the camps were liberated in 1945, Viktor Frankl returned to Vienna with nothing: no family, no home, no possessions. But he carried something far more powerful, a message forged in the fire of suffering. In just 9 days, Frankl sat down and poured his soul into a manuscript, Man's Search for Meaning. It wasn't just a memoir, it was a psychological manifesto. The book would go on to sell over 16 million copies, translated into more than 30 languages. But its real power lies in the timeless truth it offered the world. We are not driven by pleasure or power, but by purpose. This became the foundation of logotherapy, a form of psychotherapy built around the idea that meaning is the central motivator in human life, not comfort, not control, meaning. Frankl explained that we discover meaning in 3 distinct ways. First, through work, by creating, contributing, or dedicating ourselves to something bigger than us. Whether it's art, science, parenting, or helping others, our work gives us a reason to wake up. Second, through love. Frankl called love the only way to truly grasp another human being. His love for Tilly kept him going in the camps. Love connects us to something greater, reminding us we matter. And third, through suffering. When we can't escape pain, we still have a choice to grow from it, to give it meaning. When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. This wasn't theory, it was a truth he had tested in the worst conditions imaginable. Frankl had seen the worst of humanity, and still believed in the dignity of choice. His message was simple but life-altering. You may not choose your suffering, but you can always choose your response, and in that choice lies your power. After surviving Auschwitz, Viktor Frankl didn't retreat from life, he ran toward it. He returned to Vienna, resumed his psychiatric practice, and began lecturing around the world. He remarried, started a family, and counseled thousands of patients. But more than rebuilding his own life, he helped rebuild a world that had lost faith in humanity. By spreading one powerful idea: life is worth living if you can find your why. His book, Man's Search for Meaning, became a lifeline for people in despair. Students, veterans, trauma survivors, prisoners, cancer patients, and anyone facing deep personal loss. Frankl gave them something more than inspiration. He gave them a framework, a way to turn suffering into significance. Logotherapy began to spread, not just in therapy rooms, but in classrooms, hospitals, prisons, corporate offices, and even end-of-life care units. In mental health, therapists used Frankl's techniques to help patients reframe their suffering. Instead of "what's wrong with you?" the question became, "what meaning can you create from this?" People were seen not as broken, but as capable of transformation. In education, resilience programs encourage students to see struggle as a stepping stone. Purpose wasn't just about career paths. It became a source of identity and strength. In the workplace, companies began shifting from profit-first to purpose-driven cultures. Leaders discovered that when people understand why their work matters, they bring more energy, creativity, and heart. In end-of-life care, terminal patients found peace in legacy, writing letters, recording stories, healing old wounds. Even in their final days, they could choose meaning. Frankl's influence also reached spiritual and philosophical circles, bridging gaps between science and soul. He showed that even without religion, life could be sacred, because meaning itself is sacred. Modern science continues to validate his insights. Studies confirm that a strong sense of purpose leads to longer lifespans, stronger immune systems, and lower rates of depression and anxiety. Frankl never promised that life would be fair, but he proved it could still be meaningful. He reminded the world that you don't have to escape suffering to live a full life. You just have to find something worth suffering for. Viktor Frankl's insights weren't just for survivors or scholars. They were for anyone struggling to answer life's most haunting question: why am I here? You don't have to endure a concentration camp to feel lost, stuck, or hopeless. Pain comes in many forms: grief, burnout, failure, heartbreak. But Frankl believed meaning is available in all of it. You just have to start looking in the right places. So, how do you begin? 1. Define your why. Ask yourself, what makes you feel alive? What problem do you feel pulled to solve? What legacy do you want to leave? Your why doesn't need to be grand. It could be raising a kind child, helping others heal, or expressing yourself through music or writing. Purpose lives in small, daily choices. Even planting a tree or caring for a pet can be deeply meaningful. Reframe your adversity. Next time you're in pain, pause and ask, what can this teach me? How can I use this to grow or help someone else? Serve beyond yourself. Frankl wrote, the more one forgets himself by giving himself to a cause to serve or another person to love, the more human he becomes. Volunteering, mentoring, showing up for others, these aren't just kind acts. They're acts of meaning. When we connect with something beyond ourselves, we rediscover our humanity. You don't need to wait for life to be perfect. Meaning doesn't come after the pain, it comes through it. You already have the freedom Frankl discovered, the freedom to choose your attitude, the freedom to create purpose right now, right where you are. And that freedom is where your strength begins. Viktor Frankl didn't just survive the Holocaust, he transformed it into a message that continues to save lives. In a world obsessed with happiness, he taught us something deeper. Don't chase comfort, chase meaning. And when life feels unbearable, remember, you still have a choice: to love, to create, to suffer with purpose. So ask yourself, what's your why? What gives your life meaning? If Frankl's story moved you, share it with someone who needs it. And if you believe in the power of purpose, subscribe for more. Because the search for meaning starts with the stories we tell. And so, as we come to the end of this journey, remember that finding purpose often begins with the questions we dare to ask and the stories we choose to live by. Thank you for joining us. Viktor Frankl once said, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. This profound insight reminds us that no matter the circumstances, we always have the freedom to choose our attitude and our actions. Frankl's work has left an indelible mark on psychology, philosophy, and even everyday life. His concept of finding meaning in suffering has provided solace and inspiration to countless individuals around the world. His legacy continues to inspire new generations to seek purpose and meaning in their lives, no matter the challenges they face. So, what can we take away from Viktor Frankl's life and teachings? Perhaps it's a call to reflect on our own lives and ask ourselves, are we living with purpose? Are we finding meaning in our daily actions? Let's take a moment to think about how we can apply Frankl's wisdom to our own journey. In the end, Viktor Frankl's message is simple yet profound. Life holds potential meaning under any conditions, even the most miserable ones. It's up to each of us to find that meaning and live it fully. Thank you for joining us on this exploration of Viktor Frankl's extraordinary life and enduring wisdom.